Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. I've dropped my phone. Let's try that again. Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. Today, Liverpool beat Athletic Bilbao by 3-1 in what was not necessarily the most complete performance. I don't think it was the most satisfying performance in the world, but it was a pretty good result in the end, and all things considered, it doesn't make me feel too apprehensive towards the game against Watford in a week's time. So starting off with the first half and starting off with the positives, because like I said, while it wasn't the most amazing performance and game in the world, there were still some positives to draw from both halves. So starting off with them, I thought Firmino was very impressive in that first half. He obviously started off the pre-season quite sluggishly, as I mentioned in a lot of the post-match videos. It took him quite a while to actually get going, but since then he's started to build up his performances and his overall game. He stood out quite a lot against Bayern. I think that was the match where he really started to kick on, and he looked in this game like he's finally reached that point where he's ready to be playing first team football on a competitive basis, which, considering that it was our last pre-season friendly and we're playing Watford in a week's time, is a pretty good time to get to that. So it's nice to see him reach full fitness. Good to see him win the penalty and score it as well. Quite interesting as well that he took it over James Milner. I think that is a little indication from Jurgen Klopp that maybe Milner isn't going to be a permanent first team player this season. I know in the post-match video, not the post-match video, his post-match press conference after the game, he was saying that Milner will probably have more of a role in midfield this season after the Alberto Moreno resurgence and obviously Andrew Robertson coming in. And I think that means that with the competition for places in midfield at Liverpool, I don't think Milner's going to start as much. I don't think he's going to play as many games. So it makes sense to have someone else in the team who's capable of taking penalties on a regular basis. And also I think good for Roberto Firmino, because obviously if Jurgen Klopp wants him to be the number 9, if he wants him to lead the line across all fronts in all competitions and be that goal scorer that Liverpool need in that position, then it makes sense to put him on penalties really, because not only will it kind of boost his stats a little bit, but it will probably help his confidence and his finishing ability as well. Because if he ever goes through a period like last season, there were a couple of bits where it maybe a month and a half to 2 months where he didn't score any goals, it'd be good to have him on penalties so he has a few more chances to tuck those goals away and keep his confidence sky high. Mohamed Salah as well was alright in that first half. He wasn't necessarily as good as he has been in the last few pre-season games. He didn't get a goal like he has in most of the pre-season games so far, and in general I think Bilbao managed him a lot better than a lot of other clubs have. They didn't really give him much space to do any of those lung-busting runs where he just puts on the afterburners and bursts past whatever players are trying to keep up with him. So it's a little disappointing to have him not quite performing on the same level as he has so far in pre-season, but given how well he has played in the previous games, I think we can allow him one match where he's slightly off the pace. I think overall, while I said that it wasn't the best performance in the world, the team did produce some good moments of quality, especially in the first 20 minutes or so, up to around about when we got the goal through Roberto Firmino. There were a few moments where passes were getting pinged around, the link-up play was very good, the midfield and the attack linked up very well, and Liverpool were creating some good chances. There were quite a few good chances created for Divock Origi, certainly, in that opening period of the game. I think he missed a couple of headers and a moment where he was put through on goal and he was one-on-one up against the goalkeeper. So it wasn't a poor performance in terms of the attacking play or anything like that. There were still some things going, but I think I would have liked to see some more consistently promising attacking play, and would have liked to see the team carry on creating those kind of chances all the way through that first half. So moving on to the negatives, because there were a few in that first half. I think the first one, mentioned him just a few seconds ago, Divock Origi looked very, very sluggish in that game, and he looked pretty off the pace, I think. His confidence looks like it seems to have gone walkabout completely, which is disappointing, and I think that has affected his game an awful lot. I mean, like I said, he missed some pretty good chances, the kind of chances that if Daniel Sturridge or even Dom Solanke, who I'll come on to later, probably would have put away, showed that he is lacking that kind of confidence, and he is not quite on the same level that he was when he was first at Liverpool in the 2015-16 season. And I think a lot of that does come down to a lack of game time, because like I said, his best period for Liverpool was that 2015-16 season, especially the second half of it, playing under Jurgen Klopp when he was the first choice striker and he was getting first team football at Liverpool. And given the current state of the amount of forwards we have at the club, I don't think Divock Origi, he's not the first choice striker, and I don't think he has much chance of forcing his way into that position at any point over the coming season. So I think the best option for Divock Origi really is a loan, because while I don't think he's necessarily not good enough for Liverpool, he does simply need that first team football, and maybe a team around about mid-table in the Premier League, maybe a Stoke or a West Brom or a Bournemouth, a team like that will probably be the best place to go, because I mean players like Romelu Lukaku did that in the past when he went to West Brom, Daniel Sturridge went on loan to Bolton, and for both of those players it benefited them an awful lot and has led to them becoming top class strikers. So maybe, in my opinion at least, I think that's the best route for Divock Origi if he wants to carry on improving and get another chance at being a first team striker for Liverpool. I think the midfield, I mentioned that it linked up quite well with the attack at points in that first half, but there were a lot of other moments where it looked very, very sluggish. I think some of that is down to the personnel. You had Emre Can, Marco Grujic and James Milner, who are all good footballers, but none of them are the nippy kind of players like Felipe Coutinho or Adam Lallana that Liverpool often have in their midfield to help create things and help link play up with the attack. It was quite lumbering at times. I talked about James Milner earlier, saying that he would be moving into midfield for this season, most likely, with Robertson and Moreno sort of forcing themselves back into the reckoning. I'm not necessarily too happy about that, because I think that Milner, he doesn't have the kind of dynamism, he doesn't play with the kind of speed that I think is required of Liverpool's midfield, and that showed up in this game. Like I said, things were a little bit sluggish, they didn't really connect with the attack much. But I think that, like I said, that comes down to the personnel available, and hopefully, obviously Adam Lallana's injured for 2 months, which is very disappointing, and that will be a blow in terms of our midfield play. But hopefully Coutinho can overcome this sore back. I don't buy the idea that it's a made-up injury, because he's definitely going to Barcelona or anything like that. I think it is just precautionary from Jurgen Klopp. So hopefully he can overcome that injury in time for the start of the game against Watford, and our midfield will hopefully have a little bit more energy behind it. I thought the defence was a little bit iffy in that first half as well. Obviously we did concede that goal, which was disappointing, and it did kind of come down to an individual error. A couple of people have said that it was a bit harsh to say that it was an error from Dejan Lovren, and we shouldn't have too much of a go at him because he did try to clear it and it bounces off Inaki Williams, and that's what leads to the chance. But in that situation, you shouldn't really be going to ground anyway, because it was a fairly simple through ball in, and any top defender should really be able to clear that without having to slide in or anything. And if you are going to slide in to clear it, pick somewhere else other than the shin of an opposition player, because it wasn't like he was in a position where it was impossible to do anything else. It just so happened that he kicked it right at Inaki Williams, and that's what creates the chance. So still a couple of errors here and there, and I think Liverpool do need to make that extra push to try and sign Virgil van Dijk if they want to sort out some of those errors in defence. I think it's unfair to completely blame the defence, because I said on Twitter during the game that Liverpool were missing Jordan Henderson, because what he offers that none of the midfield players that were playing in that first half really did was he would often screen the back four and act in that kind of Lucas Leiva role sometimes, of simply plugging that gap that exists between the midfield and the defence and stopping Athletic Bilbao from being able to exploit that space. And that's kind of what happened. None of the defenders really, none of the midfielders, I mean, really got back and filled that space enough, and it meant that Bilbao had a lot of space to threaten the defence and put the defence under a lot more pressure than there actually needed to be. So hopefully this illness with Jordan Henderson isn't long term. I mean, because it's an illness, it probably won't be. And again, like Coutinho, if we have him back for the game against Watford, then I'll have a lot less worries about the midfield in that game. Little mention to Moreno as well, who Klopp did say in his post-match press conference is sort of back from whatever weird exile he was on. I think it was quite unfair on him last season. He didn't really get a fair go at things. When he did come on as a sub, he didn't exactly play amazingly, but a lot of that has to be put down to the fact that he simply wasn't getting the regular football that he needed to actually kick on and reach his full potential. So Jurgen Klopp seems to be suggesting that Moreno has re-entered the reckoning at that left-back position for this season alongside Andrew Robertson. It sounds like with Milner going back into midfield, they're going to be the two who are vying for that first-choice slot. And Moreno did perform well attacking-wise in that game. He was getting forward again. He created a wonderful chance where he played this brilliant touch to take him past the defender. And if he was just a tiny bit more cunning in front of goal, then he probably would have scored in that first half. I did decide that because he has been talked up a lot in these last few games and people seem to be paying a bit more attention to him, I decided to take a little bit more notice of him and his defensive play in general, especially off the ball. And I think there are a few problems still with his positioning. He came in a bit too narrow at times and was affording Bilbao a lot more space on that right flank than I think they needed to have, because obviously they had Inaki Williams out on that right wing, who is their main threat, and Moreno was giving him way too much space at times. But overall, I think there are promising signs for Moreno, and hopefully if Klopp can drill a few more defensive ideas into him, then he might actually be a decent prospect for Liverpool going into this next season. So fingers crossed that Alberto Moreno can turn his Liverpool career around. Who knows? Moving on to the second half. First of all, Dom Solanke was very, very good. I talked about Divock Origi earlier on and how I think he needs to go out on loan because he isn't going to be a first choice option for Liverpool. And one of the reasons I think for that is that Dom Solanke has impressed so much during this pre-season that I think he has, surprisingly, I think, because we didn't expect this to happen when we signed him. He has leapfrogged Divock Origi in the pecking order at Liverpool. He played very well in that half. He was getting involved. He assisted the goal for Woodburn as well. And then his third goal was just another example of, it was a typical Solanke goal, basically. I know we haven't seen him score much, but it's the kind of thing that we've already come to expect from him, in that he gets into those good positions. He's able to get into a position where he's really close to goal. He's in a fantastic position to score, and he still finds the space to not be under too much pressure from defenders and be able to actually take the chances properly. He takes the header brilliantly. Again, like I mentioned, Divock Origi missed a few headers in the first half, and Dom Solanke looks like he's capable of taking the chances that Divock Origi can't at the moment, which is another reason why I think he has leaped ahead in that pecking order. And in general, his overall play as well is very impressive. He doesn't seem at all annoyed to have to push out wide sometimes to win the ball back. He hustles and harries defenders. Like I said, he wins that ball back and he creates chances for his teammates as well. So he's a very promising prospect at the moment, and I do hope that we can see a little bit of Dom Solanke in the coming season. Ben Woodburn once again playing in that midfield three, a much more withdrawn role than I think any of us expected from him going into this pre-season, and he impressed an awful lot again. I mean, it's been talked about that he's kind of this mini Coutinho, and that he plays in the midfield three. He plays in the same position that Coutinho has on the left side of midfield, and he does link up the play between midfield and attack a lot, and he does an awful lot of that, joining the attack and spraying those passes around to get things going. And he was very influential. I mean, for a 17-year-old, he kind of ran the show in midfield at times, and he was once again playing these kind of passes that you wouldn't expect from a youngster. You'd expect them sometimes to play it safe, just release the ball carefully, get it to a player who's the pass is definitely going to reach them, and don't make any mistakes. But Woodburn looks completely past that phase now. He's trying exciting things. He's trying to get things going, and when they do come off, it looks very good on him. So Woodburn is starting to show that maybe, like Solanke, he's actually a decent option in the first team going into next season. I'm not saying like in Premier League games or Champions League games. I think that is still a bit too much of a step up. But I think in those cup games and League Cup games where Klopp has been criticised in the past for playing youngsters who aren't really experienced enough and aren't capable of taking games by the scruff of the neck like maybe the more senior players are, Woodburn is starting to look like a player who can easily cope with those situations. And not only was he running the show, but he was also kind of cleaning up the mess from other teammates as well. I think when Ejaria made mistakes, or Ryan Kent made mistakes, or even when Georgino Wijnaldum made the odd mistake and maybe lost the ball or misplaced a pass, Woodburn was there to help out and sort things out and not let it affect the team too much. So another very impressive performance from Woodburn. I think we've all been hugely impressed by him in pre-season, and I think pleasantly surprised as well by him showing sort of how much he can do. We expected him to be more of a centre forward, more of a finisher, and to be only involved in the attacking play, but he has shown that he is a much more complete footballer at that, which again, given his age, is incredibly impressive. In the second half as well, the defence was a lot more composed in the first half. It started off a little bit shaky, kind of picked up where they left off in the first half, even though it was a complete change of personnel. But after a while, they seemed to settle down a little bit. Some of that, I think, is down to Athletic Bilbao, obviously tiring out a little bit, because unlike Liverpool, they didn't make a complete change to their starting 11 at half-time. They kept a lot of their players on because they played a Europa League qualifier a few days before or something like that. So it's understandable that the defence wasn't put under as much pressure in that second half as it was in the first. But given that a lot of them were second-string players, really, they still impressed me a lot, and it was nice to see them get forward a little bit more and try and get more involved in the overall play. And obviously Ranier Klavan gets a pretty impressive assist, a very good cross for a centre-back for Dom Solanke's goal as well. So it's nice to see that the defensive reserves, again like Ben Woodburn, look more than capable of taking on those games in, say, the League Cup or the FA Cup when they are called upon. If I had one issue with the second half, as it were, then it would probably be that I would have liked to have seen a tiny bit more of Sadio Mane, because while he did get on the ball a little bit, he wasn't really creating things. And when the attacks were on, and like I said, when Dom Solanke was showing promise, when Ben Woodburn was showing promise going forward, Mane wasn't quite as involved as I think I would have liked to have seen him be, especially given that having come back from an injury quite late into pre-season, we want to see him really kicking on and getting back to match fitness. But I think some of that does as well come down to the fact that he wasn't playing with the same players that he normally plays with. Coutinho, Firmino and Salah all didn't play at the same time as Sadio Mane in that second half. So hopefully, I think he probably will start at Watford, I think it's safe to say, and he'll probably start alongside Firmino, Salah and hopefully Coutinho as well. So I don't think there's anything too much to worry about there with regards to Mane's performance. So overall, like I said, a good performance, not quite the standard that we'd set earlier on in pre-season. Obviously, the Bayern game is kind of the benchmark for just how good this Liverpool team can be, and I think today's game kind of fell short of it a little bit. Again, a lot of that does come down to the personnel and the kind of sort of the combinations of players that Liverpool were putting out on the pitch, so nothing to worry about too much. So hopefully Liverpool can, like I said, kick on a little bit more for the Watford game and show a performance that's closer to the one that we put in against Bayern Munich. So nothing too much to worry about, but like I said, just hopefully we need to kick on just that tiny bit more. So that's all of today's video. Thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, why not give it a like? If you're new around here as well, why not hit that subscribe button there and check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel in the past week or so. Apart from that, don't forget to follow at LFC Focus TV on Twitter as well, and I'll see you in a bit. Bye for now.